you cannot outspend the Americans and you cannot overregulate the Chinese.
Now imagine you're Ursula von der Leyen and you have to explain yourself.
So we have to find different ways of doing this.
Can I see what your t-shirt says? Wow.
Draghi says compete.
I would love to have the Epic logo on it. Can we start selling merch with Draghi quotes or something like that?
But the t-shirt was not our idea. It was a gift, and it was all too appropriate.
Where did you get it from?
The European Roundtable of Industry has a limited edition of Draghi Says Compete t-shirts, and they sent me one by mail saying that it's all too appropriate for you to have one of our very limited t-shirts on Draghi, especially after the launch of the Draghi Observatory and Implementation Index.
Would you make limited t-shirt editions as a lobby organization 20 years ago? Of course not. And now, look.
Yeah, but this is
they
not
gave you
even
the t-shirt
lobbying
and you're
anymore.
wearing it in the podcast.
This is not even lobbying anymore.
What is
now
this
we're
then?
fighting for ideas. Draghi is
So it's what?
so much more than just a report. I said it the last time. It's a political program. It's a whole set.
So it's building
of
influence.
Yeah, definitely. It's what we talked about earlier, the change of mindset that is taking place in Brussels, and it's like expressing itself
So wait,
with elements.
you say that the difference is that in terms of lobbying, if you have a strategy, you have a lobbying campaign, you know what you're fighting for, you know that you are aiming for a specific result. And the opposite, which is a political, how did you say it? A political action. It is
Program.
It is a political program. It is a set of ideas without knowing the result. Am I getting this right? You don't know what will be the outcome of the time you invest in the process. That's the difference.
No, I'm saying that lobbying is something that refers to very specific legislative proposals. You do lobbying for a specific article in the specific legislative initiative that was submitted by the executive branch, and then you want to change something. You want to change the wording. But when it comes to the Draghi Report, we're not talking about something like this. We're talking about a shift in mentality, about a political program that influences horizontally all the legislative initiatives to come in the future. It's much more than that. It's like it's proper politics. So it's proper politics with different set of principles, different focus on different ideas and values. It's a proper political battle. And from my more than 16 years now that I am in Brussels here, I don't want to say never happened before, but it rarely happens in Brussels. And there is a whole literature about this. It's called the politicization of the European integration of Europe. Things are more political now, and they are more political now because everybody understands two things. First is that whatever happens in Brussels influences the everyday lives of people and the national policies, or the other way around, the national policies and the everyday lives of people. And the second thing is that because we live in a world which is now multipolar and we are dealing with economic giants, economic and military giants like the United States, China, to a lesser extent, the middle powers like Russia and Turkey, but they are more aggressive and more assertive. We talked about it in the previous episode. There is a realization that this project now is not optional. It's not optional and it's not on the background anymore. It's something that is absolutely necessary. It's a geopolitical necessity.
So what this makes me realize is that we are looking at a system that will lead to people, for example, being able to act at the same time as business people, politicians, and maybe even journalists in the same field. And everything will be accepted. This shift of roles, which will, I don't want to judge if it's good or not, but this will also, it will give new challenges in terms of accountability and checks and balances.
Yeah, if you are alluding to the complexity of the political debate and the policy challenges, yes, it is absolutely true. I mean, you have to regulate artificial intelligence now, for example. First, you have to understand the technology, or Bitcoin and blockchain. You have to understand a very complicated technology in order to regulate it. And sometimes, to say something good about the policymakers too, sometimes this is extremely difficult if you are into politics, or if you are an elected official, let's say, and you have to decide and to vote on this or that article that is regulating blockchain or artificial intelligence technology. It's not something easy to understand what is happening. It's a complicated environment. It's a complicated policy environment these days. And that is absolutely true even for the regular people, not the elected officials, like the voters. This is absolutely true even for the voters. They have to elect representatives based on their positions on very complex matters. I mean, again, we have to live with that. We have to keep moving, and maybe we also have to adapt our democratic systems. We can discuss about that in a future episode, but it's not, again, something that needs to frighten us.
But don't you think that it is also visible that the speed of work and speed of things happening in Brussels is changing? On every level, the processes are faster. People have more work, both in the institutions, also on the Brussels bubble lobbying part. So much happening that has never happened before. That's my experience.
I don't know if that is a good thing or not. It really depends. What are they doing? What kind of legislation they are working on? Because it's not regulation or legislation for the sake of legislation. We have to have a goal. We have to have a direction. We have to know where we want to go. And this is the fascinating thing about Brussels these days, is exactly this, that there is a complete rethink about the role of Europe in the world, the nature of the European Union. What is the end goal of this huge experiment that we call the European Union? So from that respect, there are a lot of things happening. And it's fascinating to see all these changes and the conflicts of interest that they all contribute to create the new Europe, I would say, because we are in a period where we are reinventing the European project. And I say this completely detached, like objectively. No matter where you stand on the political spectrum, you understand that there is a mentality shift, a change in the mindset, a change in the self-perception of Europe, definitely. And of course, nobody can say for sure where this is going to go, but what the final outcome will be. But there's definitely a lot of change, and for a political scientist, for example, like me, it's fascinating to be here right now.
You mentioned those the direction that we have, this new direction where Europe should go. For me, looking at how the debate is shaped right now, I see three things. I see competitiveness. I see a more balanced transition that we spoke about in our previous episode also. And then I see this still emerging, but already getting shape discussion about reinventing how the European budget should work. Did you notice any specific things we could already say that, oh, there is an idea how to better shape the European budget? Do you see that there is some direction of the debate?
People who were counting on seeing a stronger, more strategically autonomous European Union that could stand on its own and compete with the United States and China, I believe that they were largely disappointed by the EU budget when it was first submitted. And of course, I'm sure that they will be disappointed by the development of the debate and the negotiations on the budget, for sure. Because it is, as you said, you rightly pointed out that it lacks ambition. I mean, it's a small budget compared to the goals that we have, the objective realities that are forcing us to rethink or reinvent the European projects. There is no ambition there. And you can see that comparing the EU budget to the US federal budget or the Chinese budget or other budgets around the world. We're talking about a European budget that has only, 2% of the European GDP in total. It's a fraction. If it's not the exact percentage, what I'm saying is just a small fraction of the European GDP dedicated to EU competences and common European policies. And that is what that is just saying that we are continuing business as usual. We are not aiming for something higher. We have to still manage the situation with the abilities, competences, and resources that we have had in the previous years. But this is what we've been keep saying, that the world has changed. The rules for the EU budget, the rules for the institutional decision-making process and the legislative process on the European level have been made. The last treaty change was in 2007, the Lisbon Treaty. It's not that long ago. It's not like a lifetime ago. 18 years now, but we're talking about a completely different world.
So, Antonios,
2007, 2025, completely different.
let me summarize where we are. We have an urgency, an existential urgency of building a European competitiveness, and the Draghi Report recommendations over the last year have only been implemented by 11%. Then we have the European deregulation, which has also then we have the European deregulation, which is also super urgent, and all those omnibus packages, to me, they work on them seems to be quite chaotic, and I don't think that if we would measure the implementation there, we would see also as much progress as expected. And then we have the budget of the European Union, which is probably also an existential thing, starting with energy, which is so important for everything. Like, without cheap energy, we will do nothing. And we have the Draghi report, which is not implemented. Omnibus packages on the regulations are slow, and the budget is not ambitious. So what are we doing here? Now imagine you're Ursula von der Leyen and you have to explain yourself.
You mentioned a lot of legislative initiatives that people will find completely foreign to their ears. That says a lot. It says that it is very complicated, and we have the additional obstacle, let's say, that to explain what is really happening. There is, as I said in the beginning, there is an objective difficulty here, and that is that there is no money. All the budgets, all the state budgets are under strain. You rightfully mentioned the shift towards more competitiveness, but even if we stayed in this whole Green Deal, green transition, or sustainable transition narrative that we had for the past 5 to 10 years, even that needed money in order to be implemented. The sustainable, the green transition, however you want to call it, the energy transition, whatever, in order to be implemented, it needed tremendous amounts of money. First, for the technological transition, and then second, to cover for the unintended consequences that it had on a social and economic level. It created a lot of inequalities. It created a lot of losers. And this is an economic term, meaning the people who are losing jobs from the previous sectors, the previous industrial sectors that are no longer viable in a sustainable environment, and so on. It was not a just transition. This energy transition, this green transition, it needed a lot of social support and a tremendous amounts of money in order to be implemented. The same goes for competitiveness, and the same goes for security. We have to understand that if we want to have proper defenses, we have to spend money. If we want to have the European social welfare state, we have to spend money. If we want to have clean tech industries, this whole innovation needs support from the state as well. And this is not a European thing. The Americans are also supporting. The Chinese are supporting their industry to make the transition to different technologies, right?
But what are they doing
We
better?
live in a state
Because they clearly have a more efficient approach to things.
If you're looking to the United States and the Chinese for lessons and practices in this regard, I will tell you only this. You cannot outspend the Americans and you cannot overregulate the Chinese. So we have to find different ways of doing this. What I mean by this is that, the US can loan tremendous amounts of money based on their economy, based on the power of their currency, based on the power of their military. There is a collection of factors. They can borrow, not loan. They can borrow tremendous amounts of money. And the Chinese, because of their political system, they can also create very centralized, overregulated plans for their industry. We cannot do either of those two things right now. So we have to find a distinctively European way of doing things.
Well,
Necessarily, we will use different tools, yes, but we have to find a balance somewhere in between. For example, if you want to be honest about what we have to do, about the energy, about the affordable energy in Europe, about the implementation of the Draghi Report to become more competitive, and so on and so forth, we need joint borrowing. You cannot go where you want to go. You cannot create the Europe that you want to create without joint borrowing. That's one. We have to change the state aid and competition rules. That's number two. And of course, the third element of the Draghi report, which is rarely debated, but it's omnipresent in the report, those three elements. The third one is that we have to concentrate more competences, more powers on the European level if we want to create an affordable energy market on the whole continent, if we want to create big European corporations that will be able to compete with Americans and Chinese. We have to change the state aid rules, and so on and so forth.
we're doomed.
There are people who say this. There are people who say we have to live with that and we have to, accept, basically, that we will be just subsisting on the margins of history. But we're not used to that. Americans are not used to that. And I don't believe that we can compromise with something like this.
No. I think we Europeans I believe that we are too ambitious, too well educated, too self-aware to give up too easy. I'm sure of that. Listening to you, I think that the only thing that you didn't mention, which I think is the biggest long-term danger that may lead us into some existential crisis of the doomsday scenario, is depopulation and the crisis with people not having enough kids, and our societies are getting smaller. Even when you discuss the power of a state, you ask how much do they have, how big is their economy, how strong is their military, and how strong is their demographic. These are three most important things. We can spend a lot of different instruments on defense. We can borrow, but in terms of bringing our population to a level that guarantees us safety and stability, I think that's a very big challenge that is totally underestimated, and we're just not dealing with it. Apart from some populist programs that clearly don't lead to any results, because, for example, in Poland we have a number of financial incentives for families and parents, which are great. They support families, but they don't lead to more babies being born.
But people don't want to have children. What can you do? There is
I don't know.
Definitely.
I don't know. That's the problem.
A significant.
What can you do? Maybe we should
Why
stop
is it
the
a problem,
pensions being paid out, because in
No,
all
no,
the
but-
parts of the world where there is no pension system, people invest in having children because that's the only way to have security when you're old. Maybe we are
Yeah, but
just too comfortable.
I don't want to be provocative for the sake of being provocative, but really, why is that a problem if there is a demographic decline? Why is that a problem? We can learn to do more with less. Look, we have technology in our hands. We have to look at the positive side of this. We have technology in our hands that if you take it If you take the technology that we have now and you put it back 100 years ago, people will believe that you are, a magician, a wizard or something. The level of communication that we have now, where are you exactly right now? In Poland or in Portugal?
I'm in Poland, in Warsaw.
All right. You're in Warsaw. I'm in Brussels. We have this discussion. We are recording it. We're sending it out for the whole world to see, let's say. But it is available. All right. So we have technology in our hands that allows us to do things with much less resources. The internet is, the best example of this. Sorry, but you have plenty of other examples of technologies that allow you to do everything with less people, for example. Okay, so we can find solutions through technology. That is one. The second is we have, and that is the absolute truth, we have the most educated generations alive in the history of the world right now in Europe. We have never been so educated. So technology and education, all right?
That's
and
why
we
I like
have
talking with you,
this
Antonio.
gives us the
because you
means.
never give up to offer a solution to the problem. You never accept that the challenge seems unsolvable or dramatic.
Never.
That's why I like our.
Never. Otherwise, we can go and stay locked in our homes. Get out of our homes every day because we hope and we insist that we can find solutions to our problems. Anyway, the demographic is not insurmountable. We can increase a little bit the rate of births, and we can find other solutions to complement the loss of the population. And I'm saying this because you know that I'm from Greece, and the Greeks were always a minority. We were never, the most populous nation in the world. And yet we have many things to show, many accomplishments, many feats, many, things to be proud of, despite the fact that we were never populous. Of course, we have to guard ourselves against the dangers of being a minority in an increasingly hostile world. But again, we have the means to overcome this. So for me, the demographics is not an insurmountable problem. It's not an existential problem. It's a very sensitive problem for the people, rightfully so. I'm not accusing them. And so it creates a lot of agony for that. It's biological. We're gonna disappear as people. We don't have enough people. We don't have enough babies, and so on, which is true. And we don't have enough babies, and we have to see if we can improve the birth rate, as I said. But this is not the end of it. There are other things that we can do as well.
I see now the mistake I also made that, and it's a common mistake, that I asked the question suggesting that there is no solution, looking at the challenge based on the current possible solutions. But as you rightly pointed out, technology might be the answer that we just don't know how it will help us. And what is also important in solving all those problems with European competitiveness, with our approach that just has to be smarter. Because like you said, we cannot outspend the US and we cannot outregulate China. So we have to be smarter. We have to find some other way, which actually I believe my country, Poland, is pretty good at. We caught up very well with the bigger economies in Europe, despite being in a quite bad starting point 30 years ago when we were starting our democratic journey. There are always ways to catch up, to take a shortcut, to use new technologies, to make something that seemed impossible. So maybe that's the solution that we all have to look for. Because the number of crises in Europe, I mean, we could spend probably the next 10 episodes listing all the crises that Europe is dealing with. Another one that I really want to also us to talk about is the crisis of the democratic participation in shaping of Europe, shaping the future of Europe. Like nobody cares what is happening in Brussels until Brussels is I'm missing the word. Until Brussels gets be the one to blame for some negative outcomes. Maybe this is also something that will be solved with some new technologies. I don't know. What do you think?
You know, I have a problem with people who are proclaiming all the time the end of times. This is a crisis. That the other one is a crisis. This is a crisis. Nuclear energy is going to destroy the world. Climate change is going to destroy the world. Whatever you think, there's someone out there saying that there is a crisis and we are doomed. We are doomed. I have a problem with that, and it is like what's the song from? It's a song from Bob Marley. I think it's the Redemption Song, and he there is a these
I'm not a big fan, so
two-line
I
lyrics
cannot
that
help you
say,
here.
you cannot help me. There are two lines in the lyrics that say, "Have no fear for atomic energy because none of them can stop the time." I really loved those lyrics. Like, the time will not stop. Artificial intelligence, this is not going to destroy the world. Nuclear energy, atomic energy, no, didn't happen. It will not destroy the world. Rising temperature, climate change, no, it will not destroy the world. Okay? So let's focus on what we can do. All these people are like millenarians. That's the term, I think. Millenarians, prophets, oh, the world is coming to an end. Be careful, repent, and so on. It's the same. It's the same thing. And I say this very consciously. It's the same thing. It's the same mechanism. They're trying to urge you into action by saying the end is coming. Prepare yourself. That's the mechanism.
Buy my book.
What exactly? Yeah. It's there's an industry behind it as well. So I try to focus on the good stuff all the time. And part of the good stuff, if you think about our history, this is not the lowest point in European history. Definitely not. I can find lowest points in every single century for the past 20 centuries in Europe. That's it.
I
Even if you
also
just
agree
go
with that
70
because,
years back.
the story I keep telling to everyone in Poland, my home country, is that in the 1,000 years of the history of the Polish statehood, let's say, or kingdomhood, there has never been a moment better than this. Because our position as a strong economy, even with all those dangers around, the geopolitical, economical dangers with Russia standing almost, at our doors, I believe that this is a unique moment, especially that Europe, from the Polish perspective, Europe is going through a crisis that requires smart solutions. So, for example, I believe that this is a chance for Poland to step up and maybe propose some new solutions for the entire European community, integrate the region, and launch a new initiatives to make things better. So there is always a way. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. There's always a way, and there's always been a way. I was starting to say that if you just go back 70 years ago, more or less, the situation that Europe was in immediately after the Second World War, that was a disaster. We started almost from scratch. Every single European state was collapsed or near collapse, hundreds, tens of millions of dead in the war, the economy in shambles, the political systems close to collapsing, the completely different picture with today. And yes, we do have existential problems, but we're not starting from scratch this time. And we have a legacy already. And if you go further back in time, this has been a continent of great thinkers and philosophers, explorers, amazing scientists, that basically this has been the stage of hundreds of scientific breakthroughs that completely changed the shape of the world and the history of humanity. We have to remember that as well. We have to look at the bright
Would
side,
you
let's say.
Would you agree that looking at right now, it's easy to have the feeling that Europe is so divided? If you look at some member states, especially the leadership member states like Germany and France, they have a crisis all over the board. They have a political crisis, they have an economical crisis, they have an identity crisis probably also. So there is basically a lot of crisis going around. And also Europe is divided in terms of where we should go as a community, what should be the set of values that we all agree on. But even with these divisions that we have right now, am I right to say that this is still nothing compared to the divisions we had in the past during the Cold War? And of course, if you look even further, the further you look, there were more divisions. Even if you look at specific states, like, Germany, until the 19th century wasn't even one country until Bismarck's. And, wherever you look in Europe, there were some divisions. The divisions we have right now, they're just, a way of discussing things.
I mean, that's a great segue into what I like to call the second segment of the Shape of Europe, which looks into which has a more historical perspective. And we talked the last time about how geography is basically influencing the diversity of cultures, languages in the continent, and it was not a very big enabler of integration in the
Integration, yeah.
continent. That's why we see a lot of division. At the same time, that's what's fascinating about the continent. At the same time, we have seen all sorts of efforts to unite the continent, not all of them peacefully, obviously. But at the heart of the conflicts that we had, there was also an underlying effort to create something common on the continent, to integrate the continent. And of course, you can go as far back as the Roman Empire or the medieval empires, all the way to the European Union, the Holy Roman Empire, and all the way to the European communities after the Second World War. But even the wars that we had was wars of different states, civil wars, you could say, of different states trying to integrate more space on the continent. So, as I said, many efforts to integrate the continent, to overcome the geographical division of the continent, and not all of them were peaceful. As a matter of fact, the majority of them were not peaceful. Again, we live in the world where we are trying to overcome geopolitical division in the continent. And we do this through a demographic process. Okay? So instead of fighting with each other and throwing bombs to each other, we have conflicts over tables, over meeting rooms, inside meeting rooms, inside council meetings, inside parliaments, inside the common European Parliament, and so on and so forth. And again, this is something to be proud of, overcoming centuries of enmities and of brothers killing brothers, basically, on the continent. We have reached the point where we managed to exclude conflict and violence from resolving our disputes. That is a major civilizational achievement. Exactly as I say it, it is a major civilizational achievement.
Yes, so that's
and
what
this
I mean.
happened.
Even this level of disagreement is way better than having enemies, than having military solutions for disagreements, right? Which we always had in Europe. Like whatever part of history you look at, as far as you look, we always had wars.
Yeah. And that's because, I believe, because there's always a tension between the fragmentation that geography is enabling on the European continent and the, I would say, instinctive urge to unite. There is some sort of unity is a recurring ideal in European history and identity. As I said, from the classical times all the way to the medieval system of states, the Pax Christiana, the concert of Europe, or even the Napoleonic balance of power, which survived the 18th and the 19th centuries into the 20th century. All this, all the way up to the European communities after the post-war, after the Second World War, revealing that although there is fragmentation and division, there's always some sort of effort to unify and integrate the continent. Most of it has been violent, including involving military action, involving all sorts of, loss of human life and other disasters. But it's the first time that we have created a structured system to resolve our differences. And as I said, this is something to be proud of.
This is an opposite example of how divided and dramatic things can be if you don't have this unity worked out between countries.
So, despite all the fragmentation that was enabled by geographical features on the continent, there was always unity as a recurring ideal in European history. That's what we said. And that most of these efforts to integrate the continent under one banner, under a common political entity, no matter what that was, or to manage this fragmentation, there was also efforts to just manage this fragmentation, like the concert of Europe, for example. These were mostly efforts that involved violence and military action. And we concluded that this is the first time that we have created a whole system of pooling sovereignty from the nation states on the European Union as a way of overcoming both our propensity to fight and to kill each other because of our differences, but also a way to overcome today's challenges that are much, much bigger than the individual nation states in the European continent. So what I wanted to say is that it is the first time in European history that it's the world that is forcing us to unite. It's not coming from a single ambitious leader. It's not coming from a single nation state or a single idea inside the European continent. It's the outside world that is actually pushing us to come closer together. We're living through consistent, successive external shocks. The things that are happening outside of Europe that is increasing the need, the necessity for a common European platform. You can think of all sorts of external shocks or problems that are bigger than the one nation state to deal with, like migration, managing the environment, creating financial conditions for growth. It's not a matter of national policy anymore. Competing with the United States and China on a global level, protecting ourselves, keeping the continent secure. Not a single member state on its own can do that. So it's the first time in European history that external world is pushing us closer together. It's not coming from within anymore. We need to overcome our differences. We need to overcome our geographical features that have created the condition for fragmentation and disunity. But the real source of unity is coming from outside, and it is creating the conditions for the emergence of the European interest for the first time in history. But it's coming from outside. And that's why I remain optimistic that we are going to find a way to do that. Because otherwise, it's like accepting that we are going to live on the margins of history and that we are not going to influence the decisions that are going to shape our world and our values and our principles in the future. So these values, these decisions are going to be taken elsewhere. They're going to be taken in China or the United States, or they're going to be taken here. But in order to be taken here, we have to get our act together, and we have to understand we have a common fate. That's what we have to understand in Europe. We share a common fate. We stand together or we fall together.
You said it in a way a proper politician would address the nation. So I don't know, we only miss the drums now to finish the speech. But yeah, I like you said it very well. I wouldn't said it better for sure.
Let's hope the audience agrees. Krzysztof, my friend, it was a real pleasure, as always.
As always, and we look forward to getting hit with tough, challenging comments and questions as
please.
always. So,
guys, please tell me where I was wrong. Tell me,
and then we will take on any challenging issues that you might have for us in the next episode. And until then, Let's keep working for a better shape of Europe.